and then the main
Yeah.
actor who's the titular character and actor
Did you
Titty?
say
What?
tickle bitties? What?
felt like he regressed to the point
Boobies.
where
Hey, Indigo made the beat.
you are now about to witness the strength of geek knowledge. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. This time, however, I will be your guest host, being the eternity of the podcast, yours truly, James. And laughing and snickering at my NWA album intro reference there is Queen Valkyrie or King Valkyrie of New Asgard. What's going on, Queen?
Why you call me a king?
Well, she calls herself King at some points in
Yeah,
the
that was
movie,
weird
too.
too. I
Confusing.
noticed in the movie she's king, not queen.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
Mm.
How's the weather over there?
All right.
Are you
Yeah, New
melting?
Asgard slash LA.
Am I melting? No, it's not that. It's like not even that warm. I mean, in LA, not in Asgard or wherever the hell I'm from.
Well, yeah.
It's like,
Well, Asgard's warm, all
Yeah,
right.
after
The old
after
Asgard.
Surtur did his thing, it's pretty hot in Asgard, right? So
oh
All
my
right.
God.
Speaking of the pantheon leader of the gods themselves, Mike, aka Zeus. What's going on?
not much. I'm just glad the snow finally melted up here this morning, and we are good to go.
Good stuff. Unfortunately, we are missing our other colleagues, Thor, aka Keith, and Korg, aka Chris. So it's just gonna be us four here this evening. And if you couldn't figure out by the terrible jokes and puns, we will be reviewing today, Thor Love and Thunder. Unfortunately, some people are calling it Thor Love and Trash, or they're calling it Marvel's greatest entry into the MCU. We will take no sides in the geek toxic fandom. We will just give you straight from our heart our takes, our impressions of the movie, and our overall grades of the movie. So, without further ado, let's actually talk about the synopsis of the movie. Thor: Love and Thunder. In this movie, Thor, the fourth movie of the Thor franchise, Thor embarks on a journey unlike anything he's ever faced, a quest for inner peace. However, his retirement gets interrupted by Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale, a galactic who seeks extinction of all the gods. To combat the threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, the Queen, Korg, Chris was not here, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, that's to be who, to his surprise, inexplicably wields his magical hammer. Together, they set out on a harrowing cosmic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God's Butcher's vengeance.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
You've heard of this. You've seen this, right? You know what that is.
It is unavoidable. It is your destiny.
Is this not why you are here?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Knock that shit off.
So, before we get into our takes and our impressions, I know I mentioned the toxic fandom, which is surprising because according to the Rotten Tomatoes score, it's standing at a 67%, which is one of the lowest of the MCU in a very long
Yeah.
time. However, the audience score is at 80%. Still not as high as many of the movies released in Phase 4, but you can see the disparity between the critics, the Rotten Tomatoes, and then the quote unquote audience members who are getting their reaction straight out of the movie.
How's that compared
That
to a Ragnarok? Do we have those numbers?
Yeah, I was trying to find it before the
Okay.
podcast, but unfortunately, I did not do my homework on that. But we'll find it and we'll post it during editing. So editing's for. So we know where the audience stands. We know Rotten Tomatoes stands. So let's talk to the members of the pod, starting with the Queen herself. What is your overall take and impression of the movie?
We're not doing ratings yet,
No,
right?
not till we end.
Nope,
Right.
not yet.
Okay. Well, I saw the movie in 3D, which is one of my favorite ways to see a movie. So that added to like the overall experience. It was a great movie to see in 3D. Um, Overall, I fell asleep in the middle of it.
Oh shit.
Um,
Not a
I
good sign.
Oh shit.
may have spilled my drink on my neighbor's lap at one
Wow.
point.
Your neighbor, you mean the person that was sitting next to you, random, watching the
Yeah,
movie? Oh my
just
god.
some random person next to me. Um, I struggled to not follow the movie, just care about the characters and the
Yeah.
storyline. So,
That's fair. That's very fair.
but the 3D was good. So, that helped. That
It
made
was
up for
pretty,
it.
right?
So, yeah, overall, like it was
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, Um, like what's that saying? Mona Lisa. Far from good, good from far, or whatever.
Mm.
Pretty, but not. I don't know.
Pretty
I don't
far,
know. I
far from
didn't.
pretty.
Yeah,
Pretty from far,
I
but yeah,
didn't.
yeah, we get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I saw it. I had much higher expectations for it. There we go. Than what I ended up thinking at the end. So I'll save my grade, but my
No,
overall was a
that's
eh.
good first
Yeah.
impression. Mike,
Yeah.
the one who
So
sits below the one above
I get
all.
where Brooksy's coming from. I didn't fall asleep, so I think I wasn't as tired maybe, but th- th- I didn't hate this movie, but it's not one of my favorites for sure, especially in the Thor series. Like even I'm a huge fan of Thor 1 because of the Kenneth Branagh style, Shakespearean style of the
Yeah,
movie.
you and Chris are the
Yeah,
only ones I know that really
we
love that
love
one.
that, and I enjoyed Ragnarok because it was funny, but this one took it to a whole new extreme for me, which was just too much, and
Yeah,
so it lost me
we're
there.
gonna get the specifics a little bit
Yeah,
later,
it
but
lost
yeah,
me
just
there.
your gut. Yeah,
Also, I wasn't happy with the where Taika took some of the characters development wise, which we'll also get into.
hmm
So,
okay.
yeah, like I said, not the best Thor outing, not the worst. Definitely so far for MCU 2022, it's probably at the bottom of my list right now.
Wow, that's very
Hmm.
honest. So my first impression, I actually got to watch it with both Eric and Keith, and I think Keith and I were probably the closest opinions about it. I felt the movie was it was very upsy downsy. You had very high moments, very low moments. It wasn't a yeah upsy downsy. It wasn't like an even keel movie. It just felt like it was a blockbuster, a summer blockbuster, standalone from the entire Marvel IP, starring your favorite actor with some comedic bits, and then there's a little drama in the third act, and then everything rolls in a nice, beautiful, CGI or explosion type of thing. So, as a Marvel MCU fan, I was very disappointed in the movie. However, as someone who just came to watch a blockbuster movie, popcorn and soda, I enjoyed myself, which is weird. We'll get into the dichotomy between, my split. One part of me did not like the movie. I thought it was terrible. The other part thought, wow, this is a very funny movie. I would love to watch it again. So now let's get to specifics of the movie, and we'll go the other way around. Starting with me is the tone of the movie, which plays into what I think Brooks mentioned a little bit, and I was getting into is I think, and with tone, we have to talk about the director. This is Taika Waititi's second foray into the MCU. We know he's in other stuff like Jojo Rabbit and What We Do in the Shadows and whatnot. Um, you mentioned Mike Thor Ragnarok, the way he did that movie. Let's just use that as a benchmark, right? Thor Ragnarok. I think he went back to the lab and was trying to recreate the highs of that movie on steroids, but didn't pay attention to how that the entire movie and story worked, which we'll get. That's part two story. So tone wise, I think he failed his job as a director to keep an even keeled tone because The first third act of the movie was a comedy. Then it became like a drama. I have cancer. Oh, and I also trying to, whatever. And then the third was trying to marry everything together and end the movie on a high note. So, Mike, what's your take on the tone and direction of this movie?
Yeah, like I was saying, like this one was just too much with the comedy. Um, you couldn't have a serious moment without some kind of comic break in it, and sometimes you just want the serious moments to be serious moments, and then you move to another scene. If you want to do a funny thing in the next scene, fine. You know, I mean, there are certain things I laugh my ass off at, like the screaming goats. I love the screaming goats in this movie, right? They were so funny. Korg was funny as usual. One thing I didn't like at all was they. It seems like every Thor movie now they keep making Thor dumber and dumber. Just to get the laughs. And Thor didn't start out that way, but now he's becoming like the dumbest Avenger, not the strongest Avenger, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know where they
Cause
want to go
yeah,
with
he
it.
went from like in Thor 1 and Avengers 1, he was kind of like the frat boy, but was still doing pretty well in
Yeah,
school. So now he's almost mentally
right.
handicapped
Like he
as
leans
a
on everybody for
Wow.
information now. Yeah,
challenge.
it's like he
Apologies,
can't
mentally
figure
challenged.
anything out for himself, and he's got to get everybody else has to fill him in on what's going on. Like this, I don't like this version of Thor. So
Yeah. What about you, Queen? What do you think of the tone and direction of this movie compared to? And
Um,
you've seen the other movies. In fact, you've seen Thor Ragnarok with us. What's your take?
yes. I loved Thor Ragnarok. That's like one of my favorite MCU movies. Um, and I think I expected that from this movie, and like it just failed miserably. Like that movie was actually funny, and this movie felt like it was trying to be funny, but it just like really missed for me. Like there wasn't a lot of parts I laughed at. There wasn't a lot of like the jokes were like corny dad jokes, which is probably why Mike loved them so much. But it was like it it just was like miss the mark. Like it was all like I'm stupid humor.
right,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Which is like I want like more clever humor, which is like what I felt like Thor Ragnarok
So
had. And that's why like I just was like looking at this movie a lot like why are you so dumb? Like why I don't know that it just didn't feel and I don't know the like character development of Thor. Maybe that's just like what he's like, but it didn't seem like it because it wasn't like that from the other movies.
so one
Yeah.
of the best jokes or the best bits in Ragnarok is I'll give you an example of the difference. Like in Ragnarok, one of the best bits was the get help bit between Loki and Thor, right? And Thor and
Just
Loki's
to
like,
get
I don't
help.
want to
Not to
play
get help.
get help. I don't want to do get help again. And he tosses him
Mhm.
right into the guys.
He goes, oh,
Yeah,
classic.
and
Works
it's
every
hilarious,
time.
right? And
Yeah.
they came up. Thor came up with a plan, and they did whatever. And I think also in Ragnarok we had a better villain. I think they shorted Gore.
Yeah.
Like he could have been so much better. So Hela was more
Yeah,
of a
so
threat. I think
that's
because Hela was more of a threat to Asgard and Thor and Loki, like they were there. The stakes seem to be more serious in that one than this one.
so Mike, you actually delve right into my next item on the agenda. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I do have agenda. Is the story.
Mm-hmm.
Story and plot. You get into the fact that we talked about the character of Thor seeming to be dumber dumber each iteration, but in this particular case, he was put into a quote unquote plot story narrative that definitely didn't seem to. It tried to at the end. All of a sudden, he's an adopted father, but it didn't show growth from this character we've seen since Thor 1, beyond other things, right? It is so. What's your thoughts on the actual story as written by? I forgot the gentleman who wrote the play, but I know Taika Waititi was involved as well. Um, what's your take on the plot? Because that's the content of the movie, right? Other than like the explosions and the humor and the CGI
Doo
effects.
doo.
Oof,
I'm gonna say this. I
oof.
was excited about Lady Thor, about Jane wielding the hammer. I was happy that Meow Meow was back together. You know,
Yeah,
there were a lot of plot points I did like. They went with the cancer storyline and her becoming Thor
from the comics. Yeah,
and Valkyrie and it was good to see the whole aftermath of all that. It was I knew the backstory, not originally from the comics, but I had looked up ahead of time about Gore and how he became who he was and the Necro Sword and all that. So I was looking forward to all that. I was, like I said, I kind of got let down with how it came out with Gore, the whole thing um, materialized on the screen, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just think I can't tell you how, but I can say that I wish the story was maybe not the overall
Cohesive.
story, but individual plot points within the story probably could have been done way better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me pivot to Brooks, because I hear you, but I think you really don't want to say what you want to say. So I know Brooks will.
Let loose.
As a story with the first, three arcs, one, two, three. There's a how people write stories, except for Chris Terrio. The character sees a challenge, the character struggles, and then eventually the character learns a lesson, he overcomes the challenge. Brooks, you said doo doo.
Doo
Be
doo.
specific. What exactly felt like a piece of shit with this story and narrative?
I I think for me, for the story, when I start to like empathize with the character or like feel, when I start to have like feelings like with the character or for the character or the surrounding characters, then I know for me it's well like I mean I'm not gonna say it's well written in general, like just that's how I relate. Like if I can really relate to a movie or empathize with any of the characters, I feel like it's well written. It's like drawing me in, and that's what I want a movie to do. I did not feel that way about this any of like about with Thor, even with what's her name that had cancer. Like
At
I
what point
didn't
did you fall
feel at
asleep in this
all
movie?
like
At what point?
dead in the center of the like literally dead in the center of the movie.
When
I
they were
probably
on
is when I fell asleep.
the God City, whatever it's called. That was probably in the middle.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right. And like it just like didn't captivate me ever, the story. Like I was half the time I'm like, what, like what is, not like what's going on, like it was confusing, just like why is it that it
Why
didn't
is this
feel
happening?
like,
How does this connect to the couple scenes I just
But
yeah.
can I
watched? Which is the story and
but can I
plot.
give you an
Go ahead.
example of what I'm saying about just not letting serious moments be serious in this movie?
Hmm.
Yes.
There was a moment. Okay, so we know Heimdall was dead. His son is alive. His son
Hmm.
and a bunch of children
Well, we
were
learn in the third act, second act.
his son and a bunch of children were kidnapped by Gore as to lure the two Thors and Valkyrie and all of them out, right?
And
And then
Stormbreaker for
and
Black
then
Widows, yeah.
Thor realized that from Ragnarok he had the ability to see through Heimdall's eyes, so he used that power with his son, and he was able to see where they were. But do you remember when he was talking to them, trying to get the location? Valkyrie was standing there tickling his face. Like,
Yes.
this is an ultra serious moment. You're trying to find kidnapped children, and she's tickling his face and trying to distract him. Like, why? What was the point of that? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just an example
True.
of why are you trying to throw this not even funny, it wasn't even funny moment in this movie, you know? So
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes like that. Like when Christian Bale was like called a hammer. This is after everyone's been captured to Thor in the third act, and he goes, "After you call a dentist," and I'm sitting there like, "What happened to Thor?" Like this,
Right.
exactly.
he's a
It
big.
just was, it like could have been funny, but I don't know if it was like delivered wrong or in the wrong. Like it just like it
But that goes
totally
to the story and it
missed.
goes to the writing. Um, so I want to move on to, because the story is one half of it, right? And the director and tone, or one third, I should say. The cast and characters is the last part, because you have a script, you have a director telling you to deliver it like this, and there's only so much you can do. Like you can be Christian Bale, Oscar winning, award winning, whatever, but you get a doo doo script, as Brooks would say, and you have to do your best with that script. There's only so far you're going to get. So starting with the cast and characters, let's go with the titular character.
That did not
Sound right.
sound
The,
right.
the name of the movie
You
was
say
also the
big
name of the
titty
character,
character?
Thor.
What?
So let's go with Chris Hemsworth. Do not edit that part out. Chris Hemsworth, who's playing Thor now for 8 movies, I think I read somewhere. The 404 movies, the 4 Avengers movies. So yeah, 8 movies.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
by
think
the
he's been
way,
any other
it
side.
said he will return. And I read an article, Taika, and both him and Taika were shocked.
Yes, Chris Hemsworth says he was shocked. He thought they meant Natalie
Right.
Portman, and he was
Yeah.
confused. Yeah.
Um, I'll go first,
Um.
though.
Yeah, Chris
Yeah.
Hemsworth playing Thor.
Yeah, I mean,
What do
like
you
I said
think?
in the beginning, I don't like this dumbing down of Thor for every movie now, over and over. Even when, and he was with the Guardians in the beginning, and he was like, I understand the mellow Thor that maybe they were trying to project in the beginning, but then he's riding Stormbreaker like he's a witch and taking off, and
And he's playing again. He's playing the script that's
oh, I
given to him.
know. So I don't blame him, but
Yeah,
I would have been like, "What are you guys doing to my character, man? Like, this guy is supposed to be a respected
yeah.
superhero." And
I mean, the way I look at it before I get to Brooks is, I mean, physically, he's 100% invested in this character. This dude goes through. You go online, all types of
yeah,
workouts. He's got the look, everything, right? He's 100% physically speaking Thor. But mentally, like at some point, and I hate to go back to, I'm not one of those nerds, go back to the comics, he's not my Thor. At some point, the character evolves to like a Thor king, like he becomes Odin somewhat.
mm-hmm.
There's growth from like frat boy
Right,
to eventually old wizened, like, man, I really was an idiot back in those days. I'm learning my lesson
right.
now
He
as
was
a.
selfish, and then he became selfless. Right? He realized I have bigger things to worry about than myself. Yeah.
Correct. What about you, Brooks? What do you think of Chris Hemsworth's eighth performance as Thor?
Um, I mean, he was good as Thor, but like, yeah, I can't really separate his acting from me not enjoying Thor's character in general. Like I said, I keep going back to Ragnarok. I thought that Thor was like peak Thor to me. Like he was hilarious. The acting was great. I loved the movie. Like all things like I mean, I would give that movie probably like an A plus. It's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe I
Not
would
that
change my
far off.
opinion, but right. And so Chris, like the actor was fine, but the character of Thor like didn't cut it for me at
See,
all.
for me,
He almost felt bored a little bit,
yeah.
like playing this Thor. Like, I'm just doing this
Mm.
because you know,
I was
I'm here
waiting
to
for
not
this.
get
Paycheck.
I
fined or
let Mike go
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
first, but
But
yeah.
you can
yeah.
see a huge difference between how the Russo brothers treat Thor in Infinity War.
Hmm. Oh my God, that was to me. That's
That's
peak
peak
Thor.
Thor.
I know he didn't have as large of a role as he did in his
No,
own
but the
movie,
quest to go
but in
get
the movie,
Stormbreaker and all that stuff, and then coming back
yeah.
to Wakanda and bring me Thanos. That
And he still had this dumb one-liners like, it'll kill you, not
not
if
if
I
I
die
die first.
first. Yes, that's
But
what's killing me. I mean,
yeah,
there's small instances of a joke with them, but for the large part,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That
Go
was
ahead, Mike.
peak
Sorry.
Thor. So you can see the difference how the Russos treat Thor as compared to how Taika treats yeah
Taika Waititi.
treats Thor. So it's just a shame.
Well, Thor is not alone. We brought back Oscar winner Natalie Portman, who Taika Waititi did not know she played in the Star Wars movies, the prequels.
Really?
Yeah, I guess he
Yeah,
forgot. He said,
whatever.
mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the drugs. So
Wait, why
Natalie
is that
Portman.
a? Can I ask why that's a big deal that he didn't know or forgot? I mean, it feels stupid that he didn't know that, but like,
Because she was in
I mean, it,
like three of the
it
movies in
was
the
one of
prequels, right?
she was
She
she
yeah.
was in
and she
three. She was
wasn't
in
just
all
like a
three.
side character. She was the mom of Luke and Leia.
She
No, she was the main
was
Right.
star, right?
she was the second. Yeah, one of the
But how
trios.
does that relate to like MCU?
Well, it has nothing to
No, yeah.
do, other than the fact that Disney owns both. It was one of the biggest movies of all time when it first came out, Phantom
Right.
Menace. It still probably ranks top 10 all time. So
I,
it's like
yeah.
saying with an actress who played, let's say, one of the biggest comedy that I don't know, freaking what's his
Bradley
name
Cooper.
from Bradley Cooper from the damn Hungover movie.
Right.
He was in all three, and now director has casted
Hangover.
him. Yeah, Hangover, Hungover, Hangover. I'm thinking of Hangnail. Anyway, a director now is casting Bradley Cooper in another one of his movies that happened to be another one of those adult comedy shows. And he's like, "Wait, you were in a Hangover? Like, what are you doing directing movies, big budget movies, if you don't know your main star has
All
done
right,
other
that's
big
fair.
blockbuster?"
Right, you
So
could like Google what else she's been in.
yeah,
Well, yeah. I
even
don't,
if you never
well,
That's
were
I
fair.
mean,
alive
basically,
watching Star Wars.
he was asking her to be in his Star Wars movie that he's supposed to be. He's working on. That's why.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
why
Yeah.
it's a big. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense now. I'm like, how
that's
does
the
that relate to
nail.
Thor? Like,
No.
it's important that you know that, but like, it doesn't make Thor
Okay,
better
so
or
let's get back
worse.
to the point. Natalie Portman. She comes back to play a role that she hasn't really played since Thor 2. There's been cameos since then, but trash
Mhm.
cameos. What was your
Did
take on
she? Did
Natalie
we even
Portman?
have cameos of her? Because I Thor 2. Oh, it's just an
Yeah,
end
she
game.
and then
End game,
Endgame,
right?
Thor 2.
That's it. Because in
And then her name was dropped in Avengers Age of
Ultron, he
Ultron.
was like, "Yeah,
He's like,
she's
yeah, we broke
busy."
up. Well, we're the girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you guys have the brain capacity to remember all of this shit?
Because
Nerdum.
the
Same
other
way,
stuff
same way.
like
Some people have brain capacity to remember every freaking free throw percentage of a Nick was key. The Knicks took last year. You go on the Knicks free shout out to
Yeah.
the Knicks Freestyle podcast. They will give you stats upon stats from memory, just like we give you stats about these movies from memory.
So maybe I don't know, need ginkgo biloba in my life. All
By the way,
right.
that was Blorange Tears. For those who want to
yeah.
follow our buddies over there. Um, so Natalie Portman, you didn't really answer the question. Like, what you think?
She's right.
All right. Okay, Mike.
I was like, okay,
Sound like
like I said at the beginning, I was glad to see Jane back.
Martin
I
Lawrence.
was also glad to see Darcy back too. But Darcy didn't say anything about what happened
Yeah.
in Jersey.
WandaVision.
Yeah,
I
so that
know.
was a
She
whole
didn't say
weird thing.
anything.
But
I love how
Maybe
some
the
of these.
director didn't know that something happened between them.
Maybe you're right, and they didn't write that part in the
yeah,
movie.
so this is
Brooks is
Right.
this is
right.
it. These are issues we can talk about towards the end about continuity and continuance
Yeah.
and the overall
Yeah.
Phase 4
Oh.
vision not kind of
Oh yeah, I
sticking
got that.
together,
Yeah, I
right?
got
So,
that.
but
So my last take,
yeah,
real quick.
no,
Oh,
I
I'm
was just
sorry,
gonna
Mike.
say Natalie Portman. She's fantastic. She's a great actress. She's an Oscar winner, and she took this role. She worked. She bulked up for it and everything. She took it serious and she played the part well. Even between the being in the Thor costume and being the having the cancer eat at her and stuff like that. So you could see that in her. So she was the one character I was sympathizing with, right? Because she was actually dying. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have to admit, this was probably my favorite character of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
With the second closest character, we'll get to next. Um, I like Natalie Portman. First of all, you can tell she put on muscle. Shout outs to people of any gender who decides to want to look like the character and not just have a padded suit. Shazam and half of DC's movies, other than The Rock, who's carrying that by himself. So she got in shape for the role. She came back and she played the role where I think it should have been played, because the last time we seen her in Thor 2, she was like the frizzy scientist trying to, conquer space time continuum. Now we see her; she's like older. Even the fact that she's diagnosed with cancer, you could tell. Oh, she was pleased that someone copied her book, bought her book, doing chemo next to her, and she was kind of explaining it. But then her character, once she became Lady Thor, or the Mighty Thor, I could see the pain. I could see like the newfound powers. I'm just saying, Natalie Portman to me really took me into her role up until the post credit scene, and it shows in character. This is the only character that actually, other than Loki, who had character development from the first Thor movie. Like from because you kind of see her life, right? When we first met her in Thor 1, when she dies in this movie in Valhalla. Um, So I was very pleased with her character. Now pivoting to my next favorite character, Christian Bale, who I'm a huge fan of, playing Gore the God Butcher. Um, which will go into continuity later. It felt like this was a different movie when he was on screen and everything he was doing. To a certain point in the third act, he's in the shadow realm, and it was a totally different looking movie. It felt like he was acting. He was in his bag, as the young kids would say. He was acting his ass off, but then he was in a movie where it felt like a slapstick comedy at some point. It's a movie where Van Damme's doing,
His
what's
opening scene with the when he finally meets his god that he prays to, and they're just like a bunch of clowns. You know what I mean? Like I get that they don't care about
yeah,
him, but the way they came off, like it was like a circus. You know what I mean?
like the
Yeah,
government and
yeah,
senator and congressman looking at you, waiting for you to pass a certain bill.
yeah. And I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
I
I can't knock Christian Bale for any scene that he's in. Like the man knows how to emote, how to act. You know what I mean? So
I love the scene when he had all the kids in a cage and they were talking about the Thanos story and what happened. They chopped the head
mhm.
off, and he pulls out what looks like to be a scary. I thought he was just gonna throw the snake at
Right.
them. Instead, he rips the head off and then tosses. And I remember Keith even jumped at that. It was like, whoa, no, that was again. He pulled that. It could have been funnier with someone else, or it could have looked like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But with Christian Bale, he made you believe like he was that twisted and demented because what we saw in the opening act. Brooks, I don't see any head movement from you. What's your thoughts on Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher?
I feel like when did we last? This is probably you guys are probably gonna look at me like I'm like dumb, but when did we last see Gore the God Butcher?
On screen, never.
Mm, yeah,
This is the
Oh,
first time.
never.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
this is the first time.
Oh, okay. I mean, aside from reminding me of what's his name? He who shall not be
Voldemort.
named,
Voldemort.
Voldemort.
Yeah.
Voldemort. Yep,
Yeah, everyone
from
said
Harry
that.
Potter. Yeah. Wasn't there another? Never mind. I feel like there was another character that was like Voldemort, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
another.
I know. Yeah. But I can't remember who right now.
I
Yeah.
rem- yeah, I just
Also,
remember doing
also
the
without a
comparison,
nose,
and so like
because in the comics he has no
yeah,
nose as
and
well. Gore.
Yeah.
So it's
oh,
very similar. Yeah.
okay,
So I think they were trying to on purpose make him look different so people wouldn't
Yeah.
say he looks like
Voldemort
Voldemort, but
light.
he still looks like Voldemort.
he looked just like Voldemort, and that's the only thing I could think of. But I do think Christian Bale played this character very well. He definitely was scary. Um, I, I just I don't know. He was probably my favorite character, to be honest, of
Oh, okay. You swapped there.
like in the movie. Yeah. But I didn't I don't know. There's something that like I just felt like he it seemed different from like different parts of the movie. Like
I
I don't
know.
even know how to explain it. You know what I mean? Like it just like
Yep.
wasn't like there was no consistency. I mean there
Like
was
he was in a
some but
different movie.
not.
He was his own
Yeah.
movie that just happened to have
Yeah.
another movie in front of it or around it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get you.
And it was just like
It's
bothering
almost
me.
like they didn't show him the entire script, just his parts. Because if he had read the entire script, he would have been
Yeah,
like, "What is this
he probably
garbage?"
seen at the opening premiere is probably his first time him seeing the
Yeah,
entire
right.
movie, which he probably was like, "What the fuck."
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of what the fuck, let's go through the secondary and tertiary
Actually, why don't we
characters that make
let's
up the
take a
rest of
quick
the
break
ensemble.
if we can, and we'll come back
Pay
and
some bills.
finish up with the what is it, the other characters, and then our final creature.
A couple more
Yeah.
items.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
So let's switch gears now to the rest of the cast and ensemble, which is the secondary and tertiary characters. These are the other characters who may have, had their names and credits on the bill, but are featured very little in the movie. And then some characters who don't, who make cameos, like, for example, Matt Damon or Chris Hemsworth's younger brother, but don't have much of a, or Jonathan McCarthy, but don't really have much of a role in the movie. I'll start first. I think as far as Tersh Korg, you mentioned him before in the beginning when you're talking about the overall tone of the movie and your first impression. Korg to me continues to be a very entertaining character. Even at times that I think his shtick gets a little bit annoying. I get it. His character's been consistent, so there's no issues for me with his character. But I definitely love what he did in this movie to kind of like I don't know. I can't even say lighten up the movie up because the whole movie was lightened, but he made it seem a little more like straight man comedy humor. Like Abbott and Costello.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't have. Mm,
However, real
mhm.
quick, my other favorite characters are not even characters. It's Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. They are your screaming goats.
Yes.
Um, and Keith and I both said the same thing. It didn't matter whether it's unnecessary or stupid plot wise. However, you cannot catch yourself not laughing. Double negative there. Every time they did a howling scream on the screen, even if it made absolutely no sense. It was hilarious. I don't know if that was Taika Waititi's idea or some intern who's in like the copy room who said something and somebody wrote it down and passed it on to the head writers. But that was phenomenal. That to me was my favorite. In fact, I downloaded the damn Screech for an alarm clock when I wake up in the morning and go to the gym. I love it. I love it. I love it. Mike, your secondary or tertiary characters, who would you think would be you know, coming off the bench, sixth player of the year, um, characters or actors?
Yeah, so I was okay with Korg again. I mean, I like Korg's humor,
I'm just seeing Brooks's yuck face as you're talking. But go
but
ahead.
when compared to Ragnarok, when you had Korg as the funny man, you had him around everybody playing serious dialogue. This one, everybody was trying to be the funny man, so it didn't work. I love the goats; they are hilarious. They're from Norse mythology, so that's probably where they got them from.
Mm-hmm.
Brought them onto the thing,
Yeah. Finally,
pulling the ship. Yeah. I mean, who else do we have? We had Valkyrie. She didn't have that much to do.
I'm sold on this Valkyrie ship. I know I don't want it. No,
Yeah.
thank you. No me
I mean,
gusta. I'm tired
I
of her
thought it would be
character.
more of a stepping up once she had Zeus's bolt, and that kind of just fizzled out. Let me see who else. The bug guy was her assistant. He finally grew
Meek.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, Meek.
hmm
Didn't care for him.
Yeah. So I mean, um, basically, wasn't really.
What about Russell Crowe as Zeus?
Oh yeah, we had a bunch of the gods and stuff, and
You know what? We'll get into
yeah,
that. I actually have a whole section about the gods, but just the actor wise,
yeah. See,
Zeus.
but that was another one where it could have been like a more serious role, and they kind of just turned him into a clown. So
To a
yeah,
great clown. I can't wait for our buddy from the pod, Demetrius,
yeah,
aka Jimmy, to give me his take on how he felt his culture was
right.
misappropriated. The Queen. What's your thoughts?
I did like Valkyrie. Actually, I would
Mm,
have liked to see her play a more prominent role in this movie. I thought she was interesting. That was probably my favorite tertiary character. The rest,
mm.
not super into or interesting, or I don't know, probably part of the reason I fell asleep in the middle of it. But I don't know, the supporting cast didn't really like stand out to me. Maybe the kids. There we go. The kids. I liked
I
the
didn't think about that one. Okay, good one. Good one.
yeah.
Good one.
Um but the rest, yeah, not I don't know. Again, like maybe those characters were like moving the storyline forward, or maybe there were connections to other MCU. So sometimes those things are lost on me because I'm not like I'll watch the movies, but I can't like store it all in my brain the way you guys do.
Yes, you
Um
can. Yes, you can. Where's there's passion, there is will.
ah, that's where I lack the passion. Got it. Um but I don't know. Like I just the supporting cast wasn't there for me either. So I think like that was a miss. It
Good.
almost felt
I
like
mean,
different directors were directing them, or like
yes,
especially
yes.
with Russell Crowe. I'm like, you don't feel like you fit into this movie at all. like
I
at
mean,
all.
there's a theme here that I'm hearing tonight from the three of us. It feels like different movies. Like this character is a
Yeah.
different movie. This character is a different movie. This,
So, but
um, you raised a good point. Hold
yeah,
on, Mike, real quick on the kids. I didn't realize how good of a plot device they were up until the
Yeah.
end, where they were doing their little shtick, and I'm thinking, I'm a 46-year-old guy watching it, but if I'm a 6-year-old kid watching this is something I'm going to remember for like the
right.
next 15, 20 years. Be like, this is the best movie ever. Back in my day, we had this shit happen in the movie. Mike, what were you about to
I was
say?
just gonna say, I mean, we completely forgot about the tertiary. We had the Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie, in the beginning, and they were almost.
Right.
I don't think we forgot them on
Yeah,
purpose. I
I know,
mean, by
but they
accident.
seemed. It was like I don't think Taika knew what to do. I think he should have brought like James Gunn on to say, what do we do with this characters? You know what I mean? It just seemed like a complete waste there too.
They look
Yeah,
ragtag. Like Quill looked like he had a worse beard and shave than me. Like the characters just look out of whack.
yeah. So
So
All right.
I'm
Go
reading
ahead,
about
Brooks.
like the characters here. I just pulled up this article and it
Hmm.
says the children wind up being a rather large MacGuffin of the movie. And
They
I,
are.
yeah, I just thought that was funny because I had never heard that before until like, I think
We
Chris had
started talking
talked about
about
it.
it. Yeah, Chris
Yeah.
McGuffins. Very
Hmm.
good. So we Mike was about to get to it, but it's right next here on my agenda. Yes, my agenda is this is where we're gonna really nerdy, Brooke. So bear with us. So this was the first movie where Marvel, the MCU, has established a pantheon of gods as a collective. We know Moon Knight introduced us to the Egyptian gods, and we know Black Panther introduced us to Bast, their god. But this is the first movie where they're introduced as a collective, pantheon of gods. And for whatever reason, which is not in the comics, Zeus is considered to be the head of all these gods. If you look at the comics, it rotates. Usually it's Odin, the sky god, and then there's other the and those gods are not really they're gods of the G. Then there's bigger gods like the Celestials, and then there's cosmic entities, and then there's eternity, which I'll get to also, and Living Tribunal one above all that. So MCU now has opened the floodgates, and they've given you the cosmic pantheon of gods, and we have to talk about Russell Crowe, but all the other cameos like the dumpling god, Korra's god, all these different gods. Mike, as the my co nerd here, what was because I know how Keith felt. What did you think when you saw this on the screen for the first time?
yeah, like I said, I think another wasted opportunity because we basically turned that whole section of the movie was just one big clown show, right? It was just
This is probably where Brooks fell
yeah,
asleep. I think.
and we had so much more potential. I thought with Zeus and that could have been, and the other gods and the whole thing, and then you've got. I mean, the scene was funny when they flicked the clothes off of Thor and all that stuff, and you had the girls just.
Yeah, by itself it was funny, but
But
in when the
yeah, it
bigger
didn't work for me, right? So like, yeah, that's my
Brooks,
word.
I
Wasted
don't think you
potential.
were up for this part, but what part do you recall that you could chime in on when you first saw all this spectacular golden palace and you saw Russell Crowe hamming up as the
He
Greek
looked
god?
horrible. I was like,
Yeah.
Russell Crowe looked horrible, which I know is not the point of what we're talking about, but he
No,
really,
but that's fair. It looks like that they just gave him the script and he walked on set. They sprayed the
yeah,
bronze tanner and he action.
yes. That's not what Zeus, I don't know. The gods, that part I also didn't connect to. I was like confused as to why we were going into all of these like Greek mythology gods. Maybe that's a thing and I just don't realize it in the MCU, but
In the
why
comics, it
did
is not necessarily in
it
MCU.
is?
Yeah,
Okay.
but
See?
the way that they depicted it is not like it would be in the comics. I mean, these characters
No.
exist, not all of them. Like the dumpling god, that's just a Disney, cross pollinate, marketing. Yeah, let's throw this other character we have from another. Boop. Yeah, that's a god of something. Um,
Dumb.
I thought this was probably one of the worst parts of the movie.
Mm.
I thought they disrespected a lot of different religions and different gods, who some of them are not in the comics, but they were being depicted
Yeah.
here, Aztec gods, etc. And then, of course, to have the white male Zeus overseeing all of these gods.
Right.
Not trying to be a woke agenda, but come on, they could have done better in the writing table. Um, and then that terrible Greek accent, and then the fact that Thor is coming to you. If we want to believe the story and plot makes sense, he's looking for an army to combat another person who's killing off you gods, and he's making a mockery of
Yeah.
this, and it goes on and on and on, and orgies and blah blah blah. I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is happening? This is terrible. Um, Now that's a big chunk of what I want to talk about when it comes to Marvel MCU releasing us these pantheon of gods. But they also bring in eternity, not Brooks. And eternity in the comic books is like number three in the chain of all powerful beings, entities ever within the Marvel MCU. It's the one above all, who
Okay.
is depicted normally as either Stan Lee, the character looks like Stan Lee, or Jack Kirby,
Right.
who's the original artist for a lot of these characters. So he's number one, right? Number two is the Living Tribunal. And the Living Tribunal, there's been some cameos. He's got three different faces. You might have seen in Loki and multiple
That's
that
one
madness.
person.
Yeah, one person. He's like he sits below the Stanley looking character. Then there's forget about the Beyonder. Then there's an Eternity and his sister Infinity. Eternity represents one universe, right? And you heard about the multiverse. It could be different versions of that. That's why the,
Right.
the tribunal sits above all of them, right? He's watching all. But this eternity is supposed to represent the everything that makes up the MCU and 616
Right.
universe. So they decided to introduce this one powerful character in this little Thor Ragnarok movie. Um, that's I want to give you all that backstory. So
Yeah.
now when you're watching this character and you see the little yoga pose, because you do yoga, um, what were your thoughts of this
Practice
character?
yoga, James. I
Sorry.
practice yoga.
Perform, practice, whatever.
Practice.
Perform yoga.
No. So I'm looking up Eternity,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the
By Calvin
Not the
Klein.
cologne. Said the same shit.
Wow. Is a classic omnipotent space being with unworldly powers. And Eternity is capable of granting wishes.
Yes.
Oh, so you're looking at MCU definition. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And
Yeah,
then it
grants
said
wishes.
Gore's original plan was to wish for all gods to die after being convinced
Yeah.
otherwise and
You're
realizing
in
he
the
has little
MCU
time
database.
left. I am. I'm just trying to keep up here. I fell asleep in the middle of it. Um, I don't know. I think I just I don't know. I guess I just wasn't connecting at all. I don't know. I don't have a better answer than that.
No, that's fair. Mike,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like.
as a erudite
Yeah,
person, go ahead.
it's another. Like I said, another. This movie is the film of wasted opportunity, right?
Wasted.
Yeah, I
I
did
wish
like
they
the
never even
design.
introduced
I
them.
liked the way Eternity looked, right? And
Yeah.
you're talking about the Eternity grants wishes, but we're not asking why Jane didn't wish for her cancer to be gone, or
Or why Thanos didn't just go straight to
right.
eternity instead of collecting all these 6 stones that almost killed
Yeah, and
him.
somehow Stormbreaker was the key to get to Eternity all of a sudden.
Stormbreaker
Yeah.
of all things.
So, yeah,
Like, what if he never created
right.
Stormbreaker from Infinity? Dude,
Yeah,
let's be honest. Mike, just say it was trash. They should never introduce. They disgrace. They disgrace eternity. They turn him to a wishing
yeah,
well, and then and then he gave birth to a daughter,
love.
which became
Yeah,
Love, not Mistress Love from the
no.
comics, just the character Love for Thor to raise. Dude, I wanted to punch the screen when after that. I was just
Wow.
like, Meanwhile, Keith was like, "Yo, this is so awesome! Now they bring Eternity, they can bring Beyond." I'm like, "Nah, dude, they're not gonna do any of that
No,
shit because now they're turning him to a wishing well. They're probably gonna make Galactus like that super Phase 6 and 7 and 8, like the all powerful person in the entire multiverse." I see where MCU is going.
I
I don't
mean,
like
if
it.
you like, I would have saved Eternity and Infinity for like Eternals 2 or something. You know what I mean? And we're dealing with more of the Celestials and all that stuff.
Yeah, the Celestials. Because remember, people have been asking in Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy, when they go to
Yeah,
nowhere, it's ahead of a dead
right.
Celestial, which we learn in Eternals movie are ultra powerful beings. That should have been the main baddie, or not main baddie, but like the
Yeah,
MacGuffin Brooks for this movie should have been him getting to a Celestial that grants you
yeah.
wishes. That would have made more
hmm
sense. No, we did not. We went from like high school JV to Steph Curry. Like that just didn't make any
But
sense.
they didn't. It
Um,
Wow.
was Steph Curry on the bench. They didn't even use it properly.
yeah, Steph was wearing warm
Yeah,
ups and they didn't even
exactly.
call him. All right, let's start to close out this real quick. Favorite and least favorite moments of this movie. One or two sentences, Brooks.
Uh, um, least favorite, I think, is what I really did not like was the play in the beginning. Um, I
With
don't know
Jennifer
why Matt
McCarthy and
Damon
Matt
as
Damon.
Loki. Yeah. I think it was Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jennifer McCarthy, Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah. I don't know why that was like really annoying to me for some reason. And I think that like set the stage for the movie to just be annoying for me.
Mm.
Um, that's my least favorite, although there's several other least favorites. Um,
And your favorite.
I know, I'm trying to think. Oh, I did like the goats. I was into the goats. Maybe they were my favorite characters, or not my favorite
There you
characters,
go.
just sort of
They're mine.
parts of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. What about Mike? Least favorite
I
and
don't know what my
favorite.
least favorite. There's so many parts of this movie I didn't like. I'm trying to think, like least favorite. Probably the whole Zeus, that whole God Planet sequence just didn't work for
Yeah.
me. But probably my
I
favorite
agree.
part is when they finally get to the planet where Gore is, and the whole black and white sequence, and her
Yes.
lighting up meow meow, and the blue aura from that, and like that sequence was well shot. I thought, and they had a good battle there for a bit, and so I think that was probably my favorite part of the movie.
Real quick, my least favorite is definitely the God
Mm,
City, Omnipotency
you're right.
City. Well, I'm pulling Chris tonight. My other least favorite was the whole triangle between Mjolnir and
Oh my god, I
Stormbreaker
didn't even
and
think about that.
Thor. Like in the beginning, it was funny, but then when Stormbreaker kept acting like a
Right.
jealous whatever, that got terrible. Favorite, number two, not my number one. Number two favorite was probably again. This goes with the tone. There's another small movie within this big movie that we don't really focus on, and it's the rom com of Thor and
Right.
Jane. There's a moment where it's basically like Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, their movie Marriage, whatever that movie, forgot that movie
Yeah,
was, very
yeah,
good movie. There's a moment where you see the disillusion of a marriage, or not marriage, of a
yeah.
relationship with Jane and Thor from, you know, Avengers 1, I think it was, it started for, or end of Thor 1, until right when they break up before Age of
hmm
Ultron. You see that transition. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting rom com. I would love to see if it was its own movie, like what happened to them as a
Yeah, that was
relationship.
good. That was actually
That
good to
actually,
see.
to
Yeah,
me, was
yeah.
entertaining, but again, different movie, different like
Right.
everything. And then my favorite is definitely from the moment that the goats hit that moon to when the kids are like forming the JV
Right.
squad. That little to me was like this is the movie I had wish I have seen in its entirety, and I
Yeah.
didn't. All right. So before we get to grades, we have to talk about now that we've seen the movie, we talked about the movie. Where do we think this movie is heading, both the character Thor, but bigger picture, this Phase Four we've been watching since Endgame, which includes Spider-Man: No Way Home, Shang-Chi, um, Doctor Strange: Multitude of Madness, this movie, all the Disney Plus movies, Moon Knight, WandaVision, Loki, Falcon, Hawkeye, the whole, Milliman. What do we think? Where are we going with Phase Four, Mike?
I feel and I'm even afraid to say it. Like Feige's dropping the ball a bit. Like maybe they're just trying to do too much in Phase Four, and it's not coming together like they planned. Or if there is no plan, I don't know. I hate to say there's no plan because we know Feige better than that.
But hold on. If you recall, a couple of months ago, there was word hit the press that Feige had a retreat with a bunch of Marvel
Mm-hmm.
execs to plan out the next couple of phases of
Right.
Marvel. At the time, we were like, oh, he's writing the ship. He's going to see where they're going to go, how to integrate the X-Men and all these new characters. I actually think that because most of these movies are already in the can, that he realized, oh, we didn't really have a plan for Phase Four. We're just kind of reset and end the Infinity
Yeah.
Saga. We need to make sure for Phase 5 and 6 we have a plan. And this was like when the Golden State Warriors, after KD left and Klay Thompson got hurt, it was just Curry and Draymond, and they were shit. And they realized, you know what? We're biding our time until our horses come back.
And I
And then
and
boom,
look,
this last
I
season.
get that we're introducing a lot of new characters, and I like a lot of these new characters. I like
Miss
Moon Knight.
Marvel, forgot her.
I like Miss Marvel. We're gonna see Miss Marvel in the Brie Larson sequel, so they'll all come
Hmm.
together. We'll see Photon in there as well, right? So I get we're introducing a lot of stuff, and I want to see. I just don't. And apparently we're going to see the big baddie is going to be introduced soon as well, according to
Next year and the last
yeah,
movie in Phase Four. We still got Wakanda 2 in
right.
November,
And then
FYI.
the
Wakanda 2.
Fantastic Four is still in the works, and I have high hopes for that. And maybe
That's Phase
that'll
5.
be the one that the glue. You know what I
That
mean?
starts off Phase 5. Yeah.
So we'll
Brooks,
see.
I'm
No,
sorry,
I
Mike. Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say we'll see.
Well, so what's your take? Like you've caught up with us. You watch these movies, and you know how good Phase 3 was with Black Panther, Infinity War, all these different
Mhm.
movies. But now you've seen a handful of Phase 4 movies, right? You've seen Shang Chi, you've seen Doctor Strange: Multitude of Madness, and you've seen Spider-Man: No Way Home. This is the fourth movie now in Phase 4, and I don't think you've seen all the Disney Plus shows. But you've
Definitely
seen a
not.
handful enough. So, do you feel the same feeling you had when we first dragged you into becoming a Marvel fan and you watching all these movies with us, and then now you're watching these movies on your own? And do you feel the same giddiness, the same?
Um, no, but some of them have been really good. Yeah, some of them have been great. Shang-Chi I thought was like amazing. That was
Mhm.
probably one of my
That was good.
all-time favorite. But yeah, this movie's not good. And I feel like there's been some other ones that have not been good, but it feels like they're trying really hard to make this connection. Like you you can you can feel them whoever they are, like really trying to get there and to bring all of these things together. And like in my head I just think it's all um about money, like how do we get people to watch more Disney stuff instead of it being like naturally connected, where it's like that's what it felt like
Yeah, that's like
before.
when I saw that dumpling guy from that Bao animated cartoon they did. I was like, oh
I
my
mean,
god, this is a
the
money
issue for
grab.
me is I'll give you an example, some examples. At the end of WandaVision, we had White Vision, and we were like, "Oh, cool, Vision's back," but it's not really him. But fine, we'll take him. And we've never heard from him again. And then we had in Loki,
Yeah,
we had the whole TVA, and we've never heard from them again. Uh,
multi. But we thought we were gonna see it in Doctor
right,
Strange. We thought there'd be some
right.
connection in Doctor
Hopefully, we
Strange.
see them in
No such thing.
Quantumania, because it's that whole thing.
No such
Because we
thing.
saw, like, at the end of Loki, we saw Kang, right?
Yeah.
and we're like, yeah, I got excited because that's a cool character, cool baddie to have. Not one peep. Hopefully soon, we'll see. And
Well, it's not. I mean, Phase One was kind of like that too,
yeah,
right? Thanos was introduced at the end of Avengers One, and you didn't hear from him for a little bit. But they had other connecting, like the Infinity Saga with the
hmm
stones. I like how in Phase One set like
Mhm.
okay, one or two stones,
yeah,
one or two characters, and then boom, we'll show you Thanos. Phase Four, I still think it's like that Golden State analogy I made because that's why Kevin Feige went on that retreat a couple months ago because he knew okay, Phase Four, whether it's a money grab or whether it's us introducing a bunch of new characters, regardless, we need to have an actual continuity for Phase Five and
yeah,
beyond.
exactly.
So that's why I'm not like if you dig through fandom and nerddom, there's a group of people who are saying this is the death nail of MCU. This is the nail in the coffin. And there's a group of people saying,
Wow.
listen, give them a break, man. They've been hitting home runs for a while. Let them go through a small little rebuild. The movies are still making money in the box office. They're still entertaining. There's not a movie that's been as terrible as Justice League, or sorry, Brooks, or any of the Fast and Furious movies. Sorry, Brooks.
You're a
So
hater.
just give him a
So
chance.
look, I'm
With that being
well. Just
said,
I just
before we
want to
get to
add one
Grace, get him
thing.
like
She Hulk's coming. And Hulk is one of my favorite characters. I like She Hulk and I like Hulk. It'll be good to see.
I'm not a fan of the CGI
I
so
know,
far,
but
but I hope they improve
CGI
it.
aside, I think Ruffalo has done a great job as Banner. Hulk has always been
I
great on
agree.
screen.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I'm excited for that, and I want to see what happens there, right? Because we haven't seen. I mean, there are characters that were still from Phase One that kind of just went off to the
Yeah.
wayside too, right? So let's see what happens
Yeah.
with them.
Listen, even the least excited Marvel upcoming. Remember a year ago we talked about Disney Plus, and I said Hawkeye was going to be what I wanted to skip. I actually enjoyed Hawkeye. So everything I've gotten so far, we've got Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. I'm a little scared about that movie because of all the rumors I'm hearing about the actress playing Letitia Wright playing Shuri, anti-vaxxing, rewrites and rewrites. I'm hearing a lot of rewrites, so I'm scared about that
Yeah,
movie, and I'm invested in that movie
right.
personally. Um, Ant Man and like if Kang's better be like that villain because none of the Ant Man's villains has been that good, and don't take a good character like Kang and do what we just saw with Thor Love and Thunder. Uh, Again, I'm gonna stay cautiously optimistic on Phase
Same.
Four, and even the character of Thor. I think Thor, Chris Hemsworth loves to play the character, regardless who the director is. Obviously, he likes the more funny version, but Taika Waititi does. I think with the him being a dad now will be interesting. Maybe he'll have his own spin-off Disney show. I think we're heading in a positive direction, but I'm cautiously optimistic. With that being said, let me start first with my grade on this movie. I've had some back and forth, but I feel confident now after having this conversation with two of my closest friends here that I'm willing to give this grade a C plus. Mike,
So the one constant for me for this movie is that the negatives canceled out the positives, right? So it was kind of like an even keel all the way across, like a 50-50 movie for me. So I got to give it a straight C.
okay, okay. Queen,
Yeah. I'm leaning on the C minus side.
C minus, C plus. Okay,
Yep.
okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Pretty consistent though among all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we all hit. I mean, the common theme was this plot and story just felt disconnected. The movie felt disconnected from it within
Disconnected.
Yeah.
That's
itself.
a good way of putting
Within
it.
itself.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like four different movies happening here, and then the main
Yeah.
actor, who's the titular character, an actor,
Did you say,
Titty?
did
What?
you say tickle bitties? What?
felt like he regressed to the point
Boobies.
where the character regressed to the point where basically, yeah, he's making booby jokes. I definitely believe if Thor made some jokes like that, we were like, oh, there's Thor being a
Yeah.
hero. No, that is not Thor. That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I think maybe Taika Waititi needs someone to say, "Hey, listen, calm down, man. Ease back.
Like, we
let's
know you're a funny
you know,
guy. We get it.
yeah." All
That's a
right,
fun name to say.
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Mike, where can our fans find us under a better?
So, as usual, we're all over the internet at Hero Speak, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share our videos, and leave a comment below.
All right. Thank you for having this pod with us and listening to our podcast. Please leave a comment, as Mike said. Not a text, not an Instagram comment, but a YouTube comment. That goes a long way.
Or an
And like,
Instagram comment. We can
all
reply
right,
to
you can leave
that.
it Instagram. Yeah,
We
we
want that
can.
YouTube
Some of us
algorithm
do.
to kick in, though.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
share this. Even if you don't like it, share it to someone. Say, hey, you believe these knuckleheads?
Right.
Share it, please. All right. Have a good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Hey, Indigo made the beat.